Welcome to the Coachers Podcast. Coaches, athletes, parents, and fans, this is your vault for inspiration.
How's it going? This is Keanu Yamamoto with the Coachers Podcast, in here with Coach Brad Uemoto, head football coach for Konawaena High School in the Big Island of Hawaii. Coach, thanks for jumping on. Please tell us about your family, journey, background, progression, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I graduated high school, went to University of Hawaii at Manoa, graduated a civil engineering degree, moved back home, started working, and had 3 kids. And right now they're 20 years old. As my oldest son, 17. I have a daughter and a younger son that's 11. Yeah, my journey to coaching happened not long after I moved back. So, I just started going to games and started to watch, and then kind of got my calling. And I actually started off coaching basketball in 2004. I was an assistant at Konawaena High School for about 5 years. And I actually joined the football staff for my first year as an offensive coordinator with Aaron Nagata. So it was his last year at the helm, and I came on as an offensive coordinator. It was a rough year. We went 2-8. And then the following year, Cliff Walters came in, and I was assistant for him for 4 years. And then when he left in 2015, it was my first season as the head coach. And so that's when I took over the program till now. Yeah, I got some great experiences along the way.
Yeah. I mean, obviously a lot of success recently. What do you think is the biggest thing that's kind of attributed to that success?
I think it was building the culture. When Aaron was the head coach, we did not have a good year. We lost to KU for the first time in a long time. We had a few seniors. We lost our JV program. So, we're kind of at an all-time low at Konawaena. And when Cliff came in, it was sort of a resurgence of, some success. We obviously had a bunch of kids that had a lot of varsity experience kind of slide into the following years. And so we had some guys, and, obviously winning cures everything. So we started to build the program, won 3 straight titles, and he sort of set the table for when I took over. So I was very fortunate that I took over a program that was already starting to win. And, from there, Cliff wasn't from here. So when I took over, I just sort of brought in my alumni local aspect to an already winning program, and tried to create that mix moving forward.
Yeah, no, that's good, Coach. Talking to a lot of coaches, especially up here, and I can't imagine back home in Hawaii just because cost of living is crazy. But just coaching retention is something that's hard, especially at the high school level. Can you kind of talk about, I guess what you look for in an assistant and how you're able to, retain your assistant and, keep staff continuity?
Yeah, obviously, there's not a lot of paid positions, and most of these guys are working for free. If they are one of the stipend coaches, they're not getting paid a lot. It's obviously a job you take, for love. And, the first thing we look for is not having anything to do with football. It's their dedication to the kids and being able to show up every day. So that's number one. It's how much they can commit. And number 2 is going to be loyalty, just believing in what we do and how they fit in to that system is usually our second checkbox. And then 3 is obviously some kind of football knowledge. But we sort of base ourselves, Coach Kalai Lee is our defensive coordinator. I call the offense. So in terms of hiring assistants on both sides of the ball, we sort of base everything off of, for us as coordinators, being able to teach the coaches, our position coaches under us. So, so long you love football and you come in and you want to learn, that's the guys we like.
Yeah, no, I like that, Coach. Can you kind of talk about, just the why behind coaching?
Yeah, I think over the years things have changed. Obviously getting in when I was younger, and it was more about like I can no longer play the game, so coaching is the closest thing to playing, and you still get the rush and the whole vibes from football in general. As I got older and the more years that I've coached, I really got to enjoy watching kids grow. In the program, watching them come in as young adults, boys, and turning into men over 4 years, and not only watching them develop physically but mentally and as adults, and for us to be able to form that, right? It's an integral part of their years of being men. And so for us to be able to help form and mold them to who they are, and also what football means to this community, for us to not only win games, but for us to mold these kids that the rest of the community looks up to, and it becomes a weekly event for our community that it's really cool. So there's just a whole bunch of reasons, but I think mainly it's watching these guys grow and watching our community be so proud of them.
Yeah. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit? Just a little backstory for, my 5 listeners on top here. I went to HBA. HBA is the private school on top of the Big Island. So we was getting heckled by the public schools. And when I was in high school, we had a good little rivalry with Konawaena. They smacked up on us my senior year twice. But playing at their place, was one of those memorable games for me. I got my butt kicked, but the atmosphere there was so much fun. Even though we lost. But can you kind of talk about just why Konawaena is special and, just the town of Kona in general?
Yeah, it's just, it's such a small community, right? So it's so tight knit. And we're just fortunate because football was a thing, from 1970, when they first won their first BIIF title. And so, the tradition of Konawaena, starting in the 20s as a football team, and then they took out they took football away because it was a coffee season. So a lot of these kids during the fall had to go pick coffee, and so the school was arranged around the season, and so they lost football, and then they changed the school back and was able to get football back, and it became a thing, and they became successful, and I think the community was built around football. I grew up in the 80s when Konawaena was running the ship here. That's what I grew up knowing was Konawaena football. And so, the tradition and it's the generations of families, these kids today have grandparents that have played and great grandparents and their parents. And so, when you get to the stadium, it's ingrained in the crowd, not only the kids, but the crowd and their uncles and aunties and even for the people that just want to come watch football. So that's what makes it special.
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine even up here with high school athletics, with high schoolers, there's so many distractions with things that you can do outside of sports. I think in Hawaii, that's almost amplified because then you got the beach, then you got fishing, you got hunting, you just got the island lifestyle. So how do you go about getting everyone aligned and focused, especially during summer? You know what I mean? How do you get your guys to lock in?
Yeah, we've had guys that, show up to games and be like, "Oh man, coach, I'm tired. I got home at 6 in the morning. I went hunting last night." The morning of the game. And so, we understand that you can't get away from that at times. It's just who these kids are. But it's also what makes them special. It makes them good football players because they're tough and they're just kind of used to that lifestyle. But we always talk about it. And, one of the things we always talk to each group every year about is what's the difference between one year to the next. The guys that were successful, the team that won a state championship, the ones that went to state championship but didn't win it, or the ones that never made it there. What were the differences? And we always talk about commitment. And when you talk about commitment, sometimes it's not always about, committing to the weight room or committing to the field in June and July in the summer, but we talk a lot about commitment during the season. And that commitment is on Saturday after a game, you know, making the right decision to be like, you know what, the beach is going to be there in 4 months. I'm not going to go surfing. I'm not going to go cut my foot on the reef. I'm not going to go hunting and, split my knee open. It's small things like that that we never think of, because even like colleges or bigger programs in the mainland, these kids are so committed to football for those months. But for kids that live on the Big Island, because hunting and fishing and surfing and the beach is a lifestyle, it's just the next thing to do, the day after the game and the Sunday. And so we always have to talk to them about commitment, and commitment being making decisions and giving things up that you love to do, that potentially could hurt you and in turn hurt your team, not being there. So that's what we talk about with commitment. And, you kind of pray that every week that they do make that decision, but it's a crapshoot.
Yeah, you don't run into players hunting night before the game up here. At least in my experience. What would you say are, some of the other challenges just within coaching in general?
Our school has grown. When I first started in 2015 as a head coach, we were probably at 750 enrollment as a school. We're about at 900 now. And from that, you're not getting a squad of 50. We average in the low 30s, 30 to 35, let's say. And
That's
so
JV and Vars or just Vars?
that's just varsity.
Gotcha.
So for us, there's no depth. And with such little amounts on the team, the starters are the starters. They're not threatened. There's not a guy that's fighting him every week to compete for his spot next week. And so how do we motivate these kids to keep getting better, week in and week out? And so those are the challenges, and not being pushed by somebody. At the college level, you got 3 guys behind you that could take your job any week. And that's what makes you better. That's what makes bigger programs on Oahu better. St. Louis and Kahuku and all these guys got 70, 80 guys on their roster. So there's guys behind them that are constantly trying to take their spot. The measure to stay sharp every week and do their jobs and um be graded on film, and potentially lose their job next week is what keeps them, on top of their game. And
Yeah.
so for us, that's always a challenge is pushing these kids every week, without being threatened by other kids. And so I can't tell you exactly how we do it. I think we just try to motivate them to be good with a goal in mind at the end of the year to be like, hey, this is where we need you to be playing at this level. And if you want to accomplish the things you want to accomplish, then this is what you have to do.
Yeah. I mean, not only from a depth standpoint, but from an attrition standpoint too. Like I'm assuming maybe some of your guys got to play some scout team too. Some of the starters might have to play some scout team just to give the other side of the ball a look. I mean, that's kind of how it was when I was in high school, and we carried around right around 40 guys. 'Cause we had to service the defense quite a bit. I was scout team quarterback, baby.
Yep.
Scout team quarterback. It was a good old days right there.
Yep. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. Can you talk about just your coaching philosophy a little bit? What's important to you? What values are important to you and the team?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because, when we go to like the Glacier clinics, um, to get better as coaches and learn. It's funny because you get into these classes and you talk about practice structure or different things, and it's nothing really relates to us. We don't have a we don't have a practice where the offense goes down on one side of the field and practices for 2 hours. And the defense is doing the same thing, and then we get together for different periods. We split practices in half, so it's like defensive priority, and then we flip the switch. It's offensive priority, and we sort of trickle some special teams in the middle of it. So our philosophies are so different than maybe any other programs, and even some of the bigger programs on this island or in the state. But I think our philosophy is obviously, everything sounds so cliche, right? In football is like, how do you motivate your kids and stuff? It's hard work. I mean, these kids, they bust their butts. They they end school to get in the weight room and they're working hard. We got a strength guy, Coach Hezi Anahu Ambrosio, and he works them before practice even starts. And then they throw their pads on and they got to practice, and they're tired and they're worn down. They're expected to perform and remember things and be sharp and the whole spiel. So, I mean, like I said, it sounds cliche, but it's hard work. That's number one. I always tell them all the time, every game, I say, you guys work too hard in their week to lose. It's just what it is. You guys work too hard to lose. So losing it should not be an option for you guys. The work you put in is not worth, walking on the field and losing to a team. My big word to them is perseverance. We talk about perseverance a lot, talk about not quitting. We talk about, just being scrappy, smaller teams, not only physically, but numbers, they got to be scrappy. We usually average about 4 to 6 two-way players, three-way players, special teams, offense and defense. So, these kids got to fight. They got to be scrappy. They got to prepare. And so, I think it's, if you're going to generalize it, the philosophy is just, it's hard work and getting out there and putting it to the test.
Yeah, I like that. You said you're the OC. I like asking this question. It's just the one formation challenge. So you're going into a game. You can only run one formation during the game. You can shift in motion, but if it's a 3x1 set, it can never go to a 2x2 sets. It's gotta say 3x1 or 2x2. What is that formation and why?
Yeah, it's 10 personnel and it's 2x2.
Open? Yeah, that was a stupid question. You know what? Don't even. Yes, I get it now.
Yeah. And I think just being as balanced as possible, I mean, we can even go pistol, we don't, but I think our options out of 2x2 offensively for us is probably we have the most options off of it. Our playbook's not crazy. I mean, we run tempo, so we're just trying to line up and snap the ball as fast as possible and just execute. Our plays aren't anything, you know, it's one word calls, a formation and a one word call, and
Yeah.
we're just trying to move.
When you guys during practice, situations, especially at the college level, we're always practicing 2-minute drill a couple times a week, third down situations. But because you guys tempo pretty much all the way around, do you guys still try and include some 2-minute drill situations, or because you guys just go fast on offense automatically, that you kind of already practice it?
Yeah, we don't have any 2 minute stuff, so we definitely we actually more got to practice a huddle. You know, it's almost the opposite. We got to
You know, 4-minute
sometimes.
offense.
Yeah, it's sometimes we don't even know how to line up in a huddle. The line these guys up and learn how to get out of it. But yeah, we actually end every week with tempo on air is what we call it. We got two balls on the field and we're trying to spot it as fast as possible, and we're trying to get these a play call in, and we're trying to get them to snap it in 7 seconds. That's our goal. So
Damn.
every 7 seconds, and we got a guy counting down, and we usually can't do it that fast in the game. Obviously, we're waiting for the umpire to spot the ball, but
Yeah.
that's kind of our goal. And if we get a guy that's spotting it that night fairly quick, then we're on.
Hmm. That's like your guys' Thursday practice. That's almost like you guys walkthrough type practice, or
Yeah, yeah.
no?
So practice schedule wise, and I learned this a long time ago. I think it was probably from a clinic, and this guy came up and he talked about practice schedule, and I tried it, and for 10 years we've run it like this. But if we have a Friday game, we'll do Monday in helmets, and that's just a very that's the install day. We're installing, we're getting ready for the week, trying scout team stuff. And then Tuesday we'll do heavy hitting. We're padded up and we're kind of getting after it. And we're kind of ramping the tempo up in practice. And then Wednesday we take everything back off and we go back to helmets. And we do basically a reinstall walkthrough. So after Tuesday, the things that were kind of fuzzy or they didn't understand, we're going to go back over it, going to reinstall it. We're going to clean things up, and we're going to slow practice back down and make sure that we got the game plan back in order. And then Thursday we pad back up, full
Oh, really?
pads.
Yep.
And we don't necessarily do a lot of hitting, but we will. But our theory is we're gonna wrap back this thing back up into the game. Where we want the energy level to be at an incline, and so we do all of our tempo stuff. So we want to be sharp and crisp, and want to get we'll run some 11s, and a lot of things on air, and we'll hit, but we kind of want to get them hungry. Want that energy to kind of build back up.
Yeah.
Typically in the past where you take it off and it's, helmets and then you slow everything down. And then we felt like trying to dig these kids back up emotionally and ramp them up into a game was hard. So yeah,
Yep.
we try to build the week into ramping it up for the game.
I like that. I think that's the first time I really heard that format, but I like that, and I think there's a lot of merit behind that as far as ramping that back up during the week. Any durability issues with doing it that way, or you guys do a good job of kind of controlling the tempo at practice?
Yeah, we'll do. I mean, everything is quickly. So even on the Tuesdays where we're kind of getting after each other, I mean,
Yeah.
nothing goes to the ground. We always, I mean, if we get hurt at practice, that's a big blow for us,
Yeah.
So, but then again, it's just, it's that fine line of keeping them physically sharp and engaged and, learning how to tackle to the ground, learning how to take a hit where, we gotta measure that all out because you don't want it to get into Friday night and he takes a blow and he's like, damn, I never felt that all week. So there's a fine line to it. And sometimes, if we're dragging a little bit, like we'll go after it a little bit more. So it's just kind of by feel.
Little what was that old school drill that used to be? Little bull in the ring. What was it called?
But yeah, the machine guns and bull ring.
Yeah. 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 Why is the sport of football the greatest sport in your opinion?
Honestly, for me as a coach, it's that feeling of spending an entire week of your life preparing to win something at the end of the week. And so the outcome at the end, it's so weighted, right? Because it's not like baseball where you lose today and it's like, hey, we got one more tomorrow, guys, and just forget about yesterday. Like, I almost feel like I enjoy, like, at the end of the week when you beat somebody, it's like, man, we just wasted a whole week of their lives, It's kind of like they prepared for us, they watch film on us, they try to do the things we do on practice, and then we went to war with them Friday night, and we got them, and we're moving on to the next week. But I think I like that, it's just that competitive spirit in there, to where, like, you spend so much time, there's so much moving parts, right? You're trying to get any advantage possible to go win something. I mean, not only win the game, but you're winning snaps, right? You're winning matchups. You're trying to find things to win within the game. It's just that feeling of beating someone at the end of that, right? That they put so much work into. And I think that's what makes it great, man. Like, and then when you lose, I mean, man, you feel you're down. Like, it's like you got to pick yourself up, and then it just becomes, hey, coach, perseverance for you, right? You gotta get to film on the next opponent, and you gotta forget about last week somehow. And it's a character, and it's a mental challenge every week, win or lose.
That's what being a graduate assistant, that was the hardest part. Like just staying up late, doing scout cards. Then you go out on Saturday and you lose. Then you got to go back and freaking tag the film. And then same thing Monday morning, back to drawing scout cards. Or excuse me, Monday, back to drawing scout cards. So
Yeah.
yeah, I feel you. I feel you on that one right there. I feel you on that one.
But that's what makes it great. I mean, I think that's why
Yeah.
we love it.
Yeah, no doubt. If there was, in your opinion, is there a situation that kind of gets overlooked in football?
Yeah, I think it's funny when like when players from the past, like long time ago, they come up and they would always say things like, "Man, coach, I wish I was in your offense," or "And I wish I played for your coaching staff," or "I wish I got to play in Coach Kalai's defense," because now they watch it. I think sometimes, like, coaching is so overlooked. I think where we get to watch these kids go out, and no doubt, I mean, they're the guys that win football games and championships. But the visual is always like, man, this team's got so much good players. Prime example is like Indiana, right? Watch Indiana this past year, and you're like, damn, these guys are loaded. Like, these guys are good. Offense, defense, receiver, quarterback, running backs, two running backs, linebackers. Like, these guys are loaded. And then you get to know their head coach a little bit. And now that they win a national championship, or they're in the spotlight, they're ranked, you get to hear more of who this guy is, what his background is, and you start to learn, like, man, these guys are just well coached, and you get to listen to his philosophy. And we're so lucky, like, I've got, like, great assistants. I mean, guys that have been with me from the start, and so for us, like, going back to your question, it's like, I always feel coaching is overlooked, like, I mean, even some parents, or fans, show up Friday night, and they can critique what we do and how we do things and what plays we call, and things like that. But at the end of the day, I don't think much people know, not only at the high school level, but what you alluded to before, the college level and the NFL level, where it's jobs, but how much
What
time
goes
goes
into it?
in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, I mean, our jobs are to put these kids in the best position possible to win football games. And so it's tough. Like, sometimes I tell people, I was like, man, we scored 70 points. Do you know how hard it is to score a touchdown? Like, just to score a touchdown, like, to scheme something and to just go score a touchdown. You got 11 guys trying to stop you from doing that, every play. I mean, just scoring a touchdown sometimes looks so easy, but it's hard. It's hard to put something together and have kids execute it to go score a touchdown. And I think one of the biggest things, obviously for me being a coach, but it's obviously that it's being overlooked, and some people ask me a lot about other programs, like, hey, what's going on with them? They got talent and they got this and that, and sometimes it's the coaching is not reaching the kids, and are they maximizing their potential as players? And so I think that's a big thing. I think that's overlooked. It's just, obviously, it's coaching, having good coaches.
Yeah. No, That's huge. That's huge. And I think you hit the nail on the head. And Indiana is obviously a prime example. And just the more people got to know Coach Siggy, it's pretty evident as far as to why they're successful. The other thing, though, to piggyback on top of that with the Indiana team, that I didn't know about this and probably until maybe the quarterfinal playoff game, is how old that team is.
Yeah,
And like to me, it's like, especially at the college game and with the transfer portal now, like I think they did it so smart as far as they went after experience and obviously good players, but they went after experience and their team was old. And when I think about maybe old's not their team was way more mature. Let's put it that way.
right.
So you probably talk about mental mistakes. You talk about mistakes during the pre-snap. You talk about from a defensive standpoint, just being sound. Everyone's in their right fit. They're probably their pre-snap guys. They could probably do a little bit more. These are guys that are not 18 years old and just get into college
Right.
and chasing girls and going out maybe during the week or going out after the game. Like, the average age I think was like 22 or 23. But I
Right.
think that was genius as far as how they went about their business and how they went about assembling that team.
Yeah,
Was
and
you,
it kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier. It's just it's a commitment to a goal, right? Um,
yeah.
and so if your team's out there partying and they're not showing up to practice and they're it weakens the ability to get there.
Yeah, no doubt. Who's your NFL team, by the way?
Niners kind of weird because they're a running team. I don't like running the ball, but
Is there any teams that you like to study from an offensive perspective?
yeah, I mean I really like Ben Johnson. When he
Yeah.
was at Detroit and obviously now at Chicago, just following his offenses. I mean, my whole thing is just being creative. I mean, I like Andy Reid too. I like the fact that he can openly say that he's going to take a play from a janitor, and he thinks that high school offenses are the most I don't know what the word he used, but we got nothing to lose at the high school level in a sense. So we're just going to be creative, and he's going to go look at a high school offense and check out their creativity, and he's going to take it to the NFL level and throw a play in. It's respectable.
When you first became the head coach, what was something that kind of caught you off guard about being a head coach, or maybe that you weren't expecting in regards to the job responsibilities?
Yeah, I didn't know there was I just thought it was just taking on the role of, managing coaches and obviously like parents, right? But there's so much communication with the school, right? Like scheduling a preseason game, what time your bus is going to leave for the game. What are you going to do when you get there? Carrying paperwork to send kids out that are going to go home with their parents. I mean, it's just the small things, and during the week, I'll tell my coaching staff, it's crazy because I'm working all day, and in between work, I'm dealing with, all the planning, not only for practice, but for the travel and for the next game or the home game or whatever the case may be. And who has their physicals, who has their concussion forms, the whole spiel, right? And it kind of lies back on me. And by the time I get to practice at 4, I'm like, it feels like I'm ready to like wrap it up and go to bed. Like I gotta go coach now. I spent so much time during the day planning football that now when I get there, it's like I almost lost my energy to coach it.
What would you say is the greatest moment or moments so far in your coaching career?
I mean, it obviously has to be 2022 and winning the state title.
Who'd you guys play in the
That's
state title? It was
a
Waipahu, huh?
Waipahu, yeah. And I made it more special, and it wouldn't be. I mean, it still would be special, obviously, but my son was a senior. He was our starting linebacker, so it was cool to win it with him. That was a special moment for sure. And not to say that any other state title down the road wouldn't be special. I mean, I think they would all be special. But the first one, obviously the first one, just to get one, you know, to win it with my son, and actually a group that we knew was going to be good, and was, they're a great group of kids.
Preface you this before we got on. Anela Question of the day. A little repeat from the last interview too, but I liked it. What is your favorite song?
So yeah, I've been thinking about it in the back of my mind this whole time, and it's always going to come out of nowhere, but I love Whitney Houston.
That's good.
So any Whitney Houston song kind of, is my jam.
Yep.
They're all pretty good. And I kind of liked it because I have a sister that's 12 years older. So when I was younger, it was always 80s music, right? It was always those jams. And so I had to listen to it with my sister.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of grew up like that was just that's just what I liked. And then later in life, I was like, Whitney Houston, you hear it all the time. And then I started listening to the lyrics when I'm older, right? Like working out, play Whitney Houston. I'm like, damn, all her songs are pretty sad. It's actually pretty depressing. So I'm like, man,
I only
do I
know
like it
off the
because
top of
I'm
my head. I only
depressed?
know the most popular song off the top of my head. That's the only song I know. Is the "I
Yeah.
Will Always Love You"? That's the only one I really know off the top of my head. No, that's a great song. It's a great choice right there. What does the word team mean to you?
Yeah, it team encompasses, and I tell my staff this all the time, right? Team encompasses also the coaching staff. We always allude it to just the kids, but it's the coaching staff, it's our athletic director, it's our principal, it's the staff that helps us. We got team moms. I mean, and here we're so spoiled. I mean, we got like a group of parents that they just want to cook all the meals for the teams after every game for the visitors. And then we got a group of parents that want to cook a meal every Thursday night so they know that every kid's going to go home with a good meal before the game. So they're making pasta for us. It's crazy. Part of our weight program is their people donate snacks, like Rice Krispies. So I mean that's to me that's the team, right? It's the coaches, it's the players, and it's everybody in between that supports us.
Yeah. Is it still recording on your side? That was a good answer. Is it still recording on your side? I just got a heads up. That's why I said.
I know I just
So
declined the call. Yeah, it looks
okay,
like it is. Yeah.
okay, okay. Yeah, I just got a notification. No, I
Is it
like that.
getting dark? You want me flick a light?
Yeah, yeah. Throw on a light.
Okay, hold on.
Yep. Look at that. Look at that freaking sunset.
Yeah, it's spoiled, man. The sunsets every crazy.
That's a big deal though, and that was honestly like that was the best part of one of the best parts of my high school career was, the parents always brought food post game, whether it was football, basketball, volleyball. You used to get freaking Don's Kitchen
Yeah,
the Waimea food court. You used to get
yeah,
Don's Kitchen, and those are good days, man. Those are good days. But that's a good answer. It's so much bigger than what you're just saying with the actual team. Just the
yeah.
players. It's the coaches. It's administration. It's the family. What's the best meal so far that they've cooked up?
We had a patella stew one night. And
Was that? I hope that wasn't pregame. I hope Patella Stew was
no,
not
no, that
pregame.
was post game. And
Okay, okay. Hey, I
I
don't know
just
if that's a good pregame meal right there.
yeah, no, it cannot be. Cannot be pregame. But it was a cold night, and then they scooped that thing on hot rice, and man, I just remember that thing was blazing hot, and I took a couple bites. I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And then I did a 2-go. I ate one, I did a 2-go, and then actually started eating the other plate at home. But yeah, that was a memorable one for sure.
When I think of, and I think it's just because of proximity, but when I think Konawaena, I always used to go play at Keho beach volleyball. But when I think of like Konawaena, I always think of freaking Tashima's.
Oh yeah,
Is that place still around?
yeah. I go there at least once a week. Yeah.
What is like a mixed plate, or what is something from Tashima's cost right now?
So like a small bento, I want to say is like maybe $15,
What?
and then most of their dinner menu is right around 2021.
Okay.
Actually, just went there the other night.
That's not too bad. That's not too bad. I went and got some this place called Coriander up here. Got some bulgogi lunch today. That was pretty good. Kind of took me back to Hawaii a little bit. Is there anything that that you and your staff do that you think is kind of a unique approach to help build culture within the team?
Yeah, I mean, for us, demographically, we almost pride ourselves on being, like a parent to these kids. Sometimes, they don't get the support at home, and sometimes there's families that are really great with their kids. And we you don't know, right? You don't know what their backgrounds are. And obviously there's so much of them. You don't know what they go through during a day or a night or what they eat at home. And sometimes you find out stories later, and you start to build this approach to them. They depend on you emotionally, outside of football. Sometimes some kids can't afford stuff. Like I said, in football, it sounds so cliche because it obviously happens in a lot of programs around the nation, but here especially, right? These kids are so much built, they're built around family. And so they look to us as like family members, you know? We're not only coach, but we're like a stepdad and an uncle, and, you know, the team moms or auntie, you know, they depend on us for so much, you know, emotionally and, you know, academics. And like I said, we feed them food just to make sure that, you know, they have a good meal the night before the game. So yeah, I think that's what we build into our staff. Our JV program, they do such a good job with the younger kids coming in.
Mhm.
They take them down and they do sleepovers and team bonding stuff. And no, while the kids are still, while that's still cool, they have a lot of fun together. They go swim down at the pier together. They just try to do different things together just to build that camaraderie coming in to the program. And then when they get older and that's not cool anymore, it's sort of ingrained in them. I still do our sleepover camp, like a 2-night camp at the gym, and we just kind of build, you know, the foundation there as we enter a season with the young kids and the older kids. And so it's still a fun event. So it's just things like that. It's just building culture and relationships and trust and the whole spiel outside of football.
Yeah. How do you go about, you know, addressing a player to it who aren't meeting expectations or is struggling with effort?
Yeah, we're straightforward. I mean, Coach Kalai, Coach Hezi, you know, I like to consider myself the nice coach. But Coach Hezi's kind of our hammer. You know, he walks around and he'll let you know when you're slacking.
You got a little good cop, bad cop going on?
Yeah. And Coach Kalai is known as the grumpy guy. So everybody kind of, you know, is walking on glass a little bit. And then, you know, and then they always ask me, they're like, man, you're so nice. It's like, yeah, I have to be. But nah, it's just accountability. I mean, we had the 2022 year, we had a kid that was an all-league receiver his junior year, and he came into his senior year and basically lost his starting role. You know, he's banged up all years, trainer's room a lot, and Coach Hezi was on him, you know, every day. He was telling him, you know, if you don't like it, quit. Just quit. If this isn't for you, then there's no hard feelings. Just quit. I mean, he heard that all year, you know, and he just came into practice and just kind of did his thing and just and then in the state title game, a couple receivers went down and he led us in receiving and made some huge plays. I mean, ultimately, we didn't have his plays, we probably wouldn't have won the state title. And so, like, you know, he heard it every day. And so his job was just to constantly get better, you know, and he wasn't even a starter at that time.
What do you do, not necessarily just with the player, but let's just say you guys have a good game or not, you guys end up losing a game. What does that communication look like? How do you go about rallying the troops and get them back on track?
I think you always have to give perspective. And it's sort of why I've always learned that before games you don't go all in, right? You don't give the all in speech like this is it or nothing, you know? Because when this is it and there's nothing and you lose it, there is no speech to get them back. So, you know, there's always perspective before the game, right? What that game means. And then after a loss, after a tough game, there's always going to be perspective, you know, reset it. What did that game mean? How do we overcome the situation, the new situation we put ourselves in, you know, whether it be the record or injuries or whatever. Yeah, I think that's the most important thing is perspective before and after.
Yeah. Did you learn that lesson the hard way? Like when your first year in 2015, did you give the all-in speech a little too early?
No, I didn't. But when I coached with Cliff Walters, I think at the time he probably had coached like 40 years. I mean, this guy was a vet and in Canada. And so bus rides and just hanging out with him, he would tell me so much stories. I mean, he had stories of football that you just sit there and listen to. And they're great. He told me a story one time of, you know, he did it on the bus. He said, hey, everybody, we're going to jump off this bus and we're going to go win this game. And if you don't believe that we can beat these guys, then don't get off this bus. And he jumps off the bus and he looks back, just like 3 guys. And he's like, oh no, you know? So it's just stories like that, right? That it teaches you that there needs to be some kind of perspective. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, we schedule, you know, we schedule preseason games like Long Beach Poly, Kahuku. You know, we
Yeah.
played
Well, you guys played Long Beach this past year?
a few years ago. We
Yeah.
played
Up
Mission
up at
Viejo a few years back.
Dang.
Yeah. So,
How
you
did
know,
the
it's
Poly game
perspective.
and Mission Viejo game go?
I think Mission Viejo, we lost by 17. We actually played
Yeah.
them fairly good.
Did
And
they
then
come to you guys, or you guys went up there?
yeah, they came to us, and then
Yeah.
Poly came to us. We were beating Poly at one point by 14 in the first half. We were up at the half
Yeah.
against Poly. Yeah, and just kind of ran out of juice.
That's a
But
big deal, man.
yeah,
That's
we gave
cool
Poly a good one.
that's cool that you guys you schedule those games.
Yeah, but it's perspective, right? It's perspective.
Yeah. And you guys played Kahuku last year or 2 years ago?
Yeah, we played them. We played them last year, and I think we played them a total of 4 times while I was the head
Yeah.
coach. Maybe, yeah.
Did you guys get to go there at all?
Yeah, we went there. We actually went there a few years back and played pretty well. We lost 13-0. That
Yeah.
was one of our better showings against them.
Kahuku's tough.
Yeah,
I
and what
couldn't.
an
I couldn't.
experience.
I'm thinking back to like when I was in high school, and we went and played. I just know we would have got freaking smashed by any of those Oahu teams. Somehow we pulled off a win against Mauna Lua, but then we went and played Kauai High, and we got smashed by them. But that was fun. So that's such a cool experience though. That I
Yeah,
think is like unique to Hawaii. Is like when you go play outer islands
yeah.
or preseason and or in states like what do we say at the DoubleTree. DoubleTree always had the frickin' cookies, and then you'd walk downstairs, and then maybe right around the corner was I think it was the Wailea. Was that what is it called? I don't know. Good breakfast spot, and then you walk a little further, and you're by Told Eyes, the big buffet.
I think
And
all
if
those
you
things
want
are gone now, but
what? And then if you want to sneak out of the hotel at night and you go to the frickin' Dave and Buster's, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Those are the good days, man.
yeah. Going to the big city with these kids, crazy.
I can imagine. I can
Yeah.
imagine. I can imagine. What is a drill that you guys do that you think is beneficial that you wish you did sooner?
Years ago, we used to run, a defensive drill, come to balance, where we get our, DBs in an open field situation and come to balance and make open field technique tackles. And then the more and more we kind of went through this and started doing tackling stuff, I'd like to claim that it was me. I can't remember that far back, but I said, hey, why don't we kind of make this to like a offense defense thing? So like, and maybe it already is a drill. I don't know. I've seen forms of it, but we take a running back, we take 2 linemen, we take 1 defensive lineman, a linebacker, and then a DB behind him, and we run like kind of like a come to balance drills. Now we get offense defense. We're getting to coach the ball carrier, the O lineman, D lineman, getting to a fit or a gap, and linebackers making him right. And then obviously, our offense is outnumbered, so we got a DB that's making an open field tackle. And so I think that's a drill that we've sort of developed, and we use it a lot, especially early in the season and early in practices, to kind of set the tone for us, just to start getting a little bit physical on Tuesdays, and just kind of putting everything together. And we try to make it intense. We got the O-line coach barking and the D-line coach telling him he's got to get up the gap, and we're yelling at the linebackers to make him right, telling the running backs that he's got to read his blocks. And so there's a lot of talking, and it's a lot of energy, and it's a lot of coaching. And I think that's a big drill that we do a lot that's important to us. Oh, I can't hear.
No, I was muted. That's on me.
Oh.
I was muted. When you were talking, I was just all I could think about was like kind of old school Oklahoma drill. So
Yeah.
what's like what's the setup then? O line and D linemen, are they in their stances, and
Yeah, it's
what
basically
is that?
2-on-1. So 2
Yeah.
O-linemen, just 2-on-1, and
Yeah.
whether they're splitting the double team. So we'll give our O-linemen, like, we're gonna double team scrape to the backer. Sometimes we allow them to pin and pull it, and
Yeah.
just change the look on them, and having these linebackers kind of fit them. And so we like to teach IQ, right? I mean, if
Yeah.
there's anything we can give these kids, is football IQ. And so there's a lot of teaching IQ moments within that thing. And so yeah, it's a form of Oklahoma, I'd say, in a sense. But and obviously we actually tell our ball carriers they're not allowed to like just run 10 yards and go head on with the DB.
Yeah.
They're trying to avoid contact and juke them, and our DBs are trying to make that tackle.
Yeah. No, now that you're speaking of it, I just saw a drill on Twitter that was very much like that. I can't remember what offense. I think almost looked like they started off in I formation, if I'm not mistaken. And they had a defensive lineman, linebacker, and a safety all start on their chests, and they're all were leveled.
Mhm.
It could have been 2 offensive linemen, and I think they're imitating counter. So
Oh, I got
I
you.
think the
Yeah.
D line would get up, spill it. Linebacker had his fit, but they did it near the goal line to try and limit collision, and they did it towards the sideline, which I thought
Yeah,
was good. So
we do ours towards the sideline too.
yeah. So now you're
Yeah,
just getting inside out angle using the sideline as a
right.
leverage, and then I thought the goal line component just added that extra bit of competitiveness because
Yeah.
now you're trying to run someone over to get into the goal line and
Yeah,
or stop them.
we'll flip ours too. So there's days where like that thing's like I said, it's low energy, not really moving. Then we'll flip that thing to the goal line and start keeping score and make it a little bit more competitive.
Yeah, no, I like that. Aside from winning, what other metrics do you use to define success as a coach?
Yeah, I talk about this all the time, like to our kids. Like, like we'll flat out say it, like as a staff, like we coach to win, like we're not spending all this time, to go out every Friday night and lose football games. So we're gonna coach to win, and that's obviously a big measuring stick. But I always say like if you're gonna lose, but you did everything right, it was the attitude, it was the sportsmanship, it was how they carried themselves, it was their character in defeat, right? It was the handshake line, it was singing their alma mater, all of that, right? If you're gonna lose a football game and there's different things you can be proud of, you executed the game plan, you did your job, the guys on the sideline were good teammates, things like that. And you do things the right way when you showed up to that stadium and until you left it. You told Auntie thank you when she gave you your post game meal. All of that, right? If we can do everything correct from A to Z that night, then that's successful, right? We're building good young men.
Yeah,
And like I always told them, we lost the state title a few years ago, and in overtime by that field goal. And I said, sometimes it happens, man. Life sucks, and this is a good example of you may deserve something. You worked your butts off all year, and you deserve to win this game, and you played good enough tonight to win this game, but you didn't. And life's not fair, and things like this are gonna happen. But you did everything right, and so there's nothing to be ashamed of. Nobody's gonna be upset you. It was a win for you tonight outside of the scoreboard and getting a trophy. And so just doing things the right way, I think it
yeah,
is the biggest thing for us.
I like that, coach. How do you go about establishing a sense of shared leadership within the team, and if you can kind of talk about your captain process and how you go about that?
Yeah, we as a staff will nominate like 8 guys that we feel as leadership qualities, and sometimes it's 6. And then as a staff, we vote. So the top 2 guys amongst the coaching staff are captains, and then we'll let the team vote. And so their top 2, and it may be the same as ours, then we'll go to 3 or 4 or 5, will be the next captains. So we kind of make it a integrated thing between coaches and players. And it's funny to see who coaches choose and who players choose. Sometimes it's a popularity thing amongst kids. And with coaches, we're truly looking for who's going to be a good leader. So we kind of do it like that. I always say it's tough being a captain. I mean, I know you were a captain. It's tough, right? Being a 17-year-old kid trying to tell other 17-year-old kids what to do or how to do things. So we don't really ask captains to dictate what they want, just being vocal, working hard, being a good example. If there's things on the team that's communicated coming to us, we
Yeah,
can communicate it back to them, sort of thing. But we don't put a lot of pressure on captains. We just know the dynamic, that it's a tough role for them. But then there's some that come through and man, they own it. Like these kids respond and they have a lot of clout.
yeah, I like that. How would you, when the season's over, what does the self scout process look like at the end of the season? Are you waiting till end of Christmas to dive back in the ball? Are you thinking scheme first? Are you thinking philosophy, culture stuff first? What does that look like?
Yeah, I think the main one is scheme. We're always trying to figure out, depending on the result, and more oftentimes than not, we lost, in a spot more than we wanted. But how are we going to get better next year, right? So you start analyzing your roster a little bit. I'm not much of a guy that's going to say, especially offensively, where this is who we have coming back. So this is what offense I'm running. I don't change offenses. We're running the same playbook. My thing is, what do we have coming back and what part of the playbook are we going to use more than we did maybe with a different group? So we're not teaching anything different, but it's a constant thing about how you get better, right? How are we going to learn as coaches? How do we get better as coaches? We have to constantly teach. And I feel like if we're not learning, then we can't teach. So the off season, I feel, is just getting better. I pick up a notebook and I just start writing things down. I start watching football games in college and things like that. And I just continually write things down. And how do I get better as a coach?
You got me?
Yeah.
I thought you froze it there. No, that's good, coach. If you could go back and give yourself some advice, your younger self some advice, what would that advice be?
I think I would have been a grad assistant when I left college.
Yeah.
I think when I graduated, I didn't know. There was no thought to be a coach, and I didn't know that there was anything in me to be one. So I just graduated and thought like, hey, I'm just gonna use my degree, get a job, and start my life. And sometimes I look back like I'm older now. So when I was 23 and I graduated and I was ready to start life, like, what my experience be like as a grad assistant? Maybe who knows where I would have been today, But
Sure.
I loved the sport, and maybe I aspired back then to be at a higher level. I feel like now I'm too old. I got kids here, and so it'd be hard to move and sort of start a dream. But when when the opportunity's there, when you don't have the bills yet, and you don't have the kids and the whole spiel, like, is it that was the window to try it. And I mean I wish I did, but no regrets.
Yeah. Any final advice on coaching, teaching, leadership?
Nope. Like I kind of said earlier, I think Konawaena is a special place, and so the way we coach these kids, and I mean, there's so much similarities. Just being a football coach in general, anywhere you go. But this is what binds us here. A lot of the alumni that's on our staff. It's why we come back every year. It's why we love it. It's why we'd never go coach another school, because there's just it's a special place for us. It's a special connection. I mean, even the newer coaches that come from the mainland, we got a guy from Canada. I mean, they love it. They love the culture, and it's so hard to say.
You talking about on your staff right now? You had a coach from Canada?
Yeah,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah. I mean, we had guys from the CIF that coached there for many years. So yeah, we've had some guys kind of walk through. We actually have a guy that played at Oregon. He played O-line for Ope.
No way. Buddha?
Yeah, he's a
Big
O
Buddha?
lineman. Yeah, so he's with us now.
Freaking
So that's pretty
Ope.
cool.
Tell him I
Yeah.
said hi. Tell him I said
Yeah,
hi.
I will.
I was at Oregon when we were recruiting him out of Farrington.
Yeah,
Right.
Farrington.
I think I got there pretty much the same time as him. Honestly, I can't remember. I got there in like the couple games into the 2019 season. I went there and I was fortunate enough to get a recruiting job over there. I didn't know
Yeah, so
Ope
he's
was
with
on
us.
the Big Island.
Yeah,
His
yeah,
brother's a fucking stud now.
yeah, he
Pancho?
is.
His
And
brother's
we
a
even
stud.
had we had an old school guy, Colt Laerla, back in the day. He was a tight end.
No way.
Yeah, he
He was
came
on the
through
Big
one
Island?
year. Yeah, he was living here and came through 1 year, and he was coaching with us. I
Damn,
mean,
that's crazy.
what a crazy story. I think how it ended up, but man,
Yeah,
that guy was talented.
no doubt.
Crazy.
I know
Crazy.
Max is a HBA guy, but has Max ever come out and try to help coach?
No,
Younger?
we always try to bug him, but
Yeah,
he's definitely he owes the Kamakani sometimes. So
the Kalmuckus. I haven't heard that freaking name in a while. Yeah, but shoot, Coach, hey, I appreciate your time, man.
yeah,
Appreciate your time.
thank you.
Thanks for hopping on. I'll turn this around. I just do one a week usually, so I'll release Uncle Guy's one tomorrow, and then I'll release yours next Friday.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, brother. Well, I appreciate your time, Coach.
Yeah, man, stay in touch.
Go get some of that patele stew now.
Yeah,
Tashima's. You actually get Tashima's.
yeah, that was last night.
Whenever I make it back to the Big Island, I'll make sure to hit you up. Or if you're ever up
Yeah,
this
hit
way,
me up. Hit me up
if you're
for
ever up
sure.
this way, please hit me up.
Yeah.
All right, brother. I
All right.
appreciate you.
You too. Okay. Bye.